Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the latest edition of bpm'online's Best Practice CRM Webinars. Today, we're going to focus on process-driven approach to CRM and closing the value gap for CRM users. Joining me today is Rebecca Wettemann, VP at Nucleus Research. Myself, I'm Mike Rooney, SVP, General Manager here at bpm'online. Normally, actually, Rebecca and I would be sitting next to each other, but we're doing it coast to coast today. I'm in Boston, and Rebecca's joining us from San Francisco. Hello, Rebecca.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I am great. So let's get going. So our agenda today is broken into two parts. First is the expert perspective. Obviously, that will be coming from Rebecca. She's going to focus on the changes she's seeing out there in the CRM space, and gauging the opportunities that opens up for our users. Then I'm going to follow up with more of a practical case. Actually, we're going to add in a demo of the product, as well as some short case studies or examples of things that our clients are doing. Along the way, please feel free to type questions in. You should see a bar over there for questions from the audience. Type those in. We'll be monitoring them, and depending on timing and whatnot, we'll certainly be fielding a couple of those. So with that, let me turn it over to Rebecca.
Fantastic, Mike. Thanks very much, and thanks everyone for joining today. Excited to be here to talk with you about some of the research that we've been doing in the CRM market and talk about the real changes and the promise and opportunity that process-driven CRM really offers for customers looking to not just get more out of their existing CRM solutions, but look how they can make new, additional, incremental investments to deliver more value to their organization. For those of you that aren't familiar with Nucleus Research, we're an analyst firm headquartered in Boston, providing an ongoing stream of research and advisory services to both vendors and users of technology, but really focused on taking a case-based and investigative approach. We've published more than, that number rises every day, but more than 540 published ROI case studies. We'll actually go out and assess the return on investment that a customer has gotten from a particular technology solution or deployment. We are registered with the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy, which is a long-winded way to say we measure return on investment the way the CFO measures it. And so we provide advice to both the business and IT decision maker and the financial decision maker as well. So over the course of the past 15 plus years, we've published more than 100 case studies and certainly looked at many, many deployments of CRM. And we've really seen an evolution in the way customers evaluate, develop, and deploy CRM solutions and the way they leverage them over time. So I wanted to talk a little bit about today about sort of what we see as the changing face of CRM, a little bit for what that evolution towards process-driven CRM means and what it means for productivity. Talk about the concept of CRM velocity, the actual velocity and speed of managing information and what that means for the organization. Give you a couple of rules of thumb about, as you're thinking about process-driven CRM, how you can gauge the potential opportunity for return on investment within your own organization, and then talk about some of the key success factors that hold through whether we're talking about 2000 or 2016 in ensuring that whatever efforts, investments, changes you make in CRM continue to be successful. So in looking at the past decade and a half and what we've seen with CRM, we've really seen things change dramatically. Certainly the technology has gotten better from a usability perspective. We've certainly gotten more functional capabilities, but there are some fundamentally different ways that we view, evaluate, build, deploy, and maximize over time CRM today. If we think about earlier days of CRM, it was really about entering and capturing data, storing that customer data, tracking processes so we can measure them on the back end, analyzing the past, and hoping to get as accurate as we could in the data that we captured about customers and our interaction with customers. Very backward-looking, really more about storage than about driving. And as we look at CRM today, we see much more data-driven action, much more leveraging the intelligence of the software to not just store customer data, but manage a relationship, automating process, the ability to act on data and using process tools, and again, the intelligence in the software to enable rapid action on that data. And finally, really looking at the speed and the direction of how we manage customer relationships. So as we think about the velocity of CRM, we've really seen this evolution from store and retrieve data to manage to push to today really driving ongoing customer engagement, better customer relationships. So as we think about process-driven CRM, we really think about a couple of things. Really those automated workflows, the ability to build processes into the system that can be intelligently managed by exception, leveraging the intelligence of the software to drive forward, really taking the advantage of both internal and external triggers and data sources to be able to drive customer engagement forward, to drive customer processes forward. If we think about it in terms of the self-driving car, obviously we're not there yet, but in the future of CRM, the self-driving car will not just know that I'm in San Francisco and want to go to the airport, but know that there's a restaurant I should probably try on the way and make time for me to stop off and eat there. It may know not only the terminal that I'm going to, but the best way to avoid traffic between here and the highway. It will give me a lot more direction in where I should be going, other than just entering the address where I want to go and having it get me there. So as we think further about process-driven CRM, it's really about both speed and direction. And that's where the velocity piece comes in, and thinking about the productivity becomes all the more important. So in looking back at our case studies and looking at really process-driven CRM, what we found is that process-driven CRM really drives increased productivity, reduced overhead, but really this dramatic increase in CRM velocity, not just speed, but direction, enabling companies to accomplish the work of 5 employees with 1. Now, that's a pretty dramatic statement, but when we think about it in terms of growth for small and medium-sized organizations being able to compete effectively against much larger organizations, those deploying technology effectively for process-driven CRM can gain significant benefits just in terms of managing their overall investments in payroll. So let's talk a little bit more about the velocity of CRM, really CRM velocity. For those of you who remember high school physics, velocity, again, is about speed and direction. It's about shortening sales and marketing cycles or streamlining service while increasing deal size and increasing margins. So increasingly, process-driven CRM enables us to not just accelerate the speed with which we do things, but enable those changes in direction, those structural process-driven changes that enable us to either increase the top line or the bottom line on an ongoing basis, on a repeatable basis. So as we think about that concept in the context of what I might be able to do with CRM today, we really have to think about where do I gauge the opportunity? Because almost every CRM customer I talk to knows they can always do more with their solution. They know there are other opportunities out there, but there's often a laundry list of things to do and, frankly, a limited budget with which to do it. So as we think about opportunities for implementing process-driven CRM within our organizations, where do we determine where to start? Often these decisions can be political. They can have some emotion behind them, depending on who's driving. They can be pretty charged conversations. But if we think about the opportunities in terms of these 5 key ROI factors, breadth, repeatability, risk, collaboration, and knowledge, you can quickly identify where you're likely to get the biggest return for your buck, where you should focus your efforts on the business case, but also where you should focus your efforts on adoption and change management to make sure that you get what you expect. So let's talk about these a little bit. The top 2 factors are breadth and repeatability. Breadth is the number of people, applications, or processes a technology project touches. Repeatability is the frequency of that touch. And breadth and repeatability really go hand in hand and are in part when we think about process-driven CRM. Identifying those processes where I have great breadth and repeatability are likely areas where I can invest and gain significant return on investment. The other three areas are risk. Am I eliminating or reducing the risk of a particular business operation using the technology? Collaboration. Am I enabling groups to work more effectively together because of a project? And finally, knowledge. Am I able to leverage knowledge and make more intelligent actors because of a technology project? All of these areas can certainly be impacted with process-driven CRM, and when working with clients on evaluating and prioritizing their CRM initiatives, we say, sit down with your list of potential projects, potential areas of improvement, and rate them on a scale of 1 to 5 on each of these 5 key factors. A very unemotional way to get at the decision, a good way to determine exactly what you're looking at in terms of potential ROI, determining where you really want to focus your business case moving forward. So breadth and repeatability, the top 2 ones, and then risk, collaboration, and knowledge, all being important areas where we can impact with process-driven CRM. So let's talk a little bit about the success factors when we think about ultimately being successful with a CRM project. We can identify those areas of potential improvement, think about both speed and direction, think about breadth and repeatability, risk, collaboration, and knowledge are those key areas to look at to determine where I'm likely to get the biggest bang for my buck. But ultimately, just as in 2000 is true in 2016, we're still looking at human beings being impacted by process-driven CRM. So we have to think about the human factors involved in the technology and thinking about how process-driven CRM is going to impact the way my individuals within the organization do their job. As we think about the way CRM can impact the organization, there are really a couple of human factors, human barriers, areas to look at. The first is structural. Will teams collaborate? Will marketing play nicely with sales? Will sales respect marketing? Lots of challenges as we look at linking sales and marketing more closely together. Benefit, the opportunity with process-driven CRM is to provide not only automation, enabling folks to focus on the higher level tasks, but a lot more transparency, a lot more visibility across the organization into how those marketing and sales processes are actually being executed. Next one is hierarchical. Will management feel threatened? If I put effective processes in place for sales performance management, for example, do I limit the ability of managers, sales managers, to manage their organization? Or can I use it to enable them? Thinking about how changes in CRM impacts hierarchy can be very important as well. Finally, cultural. If I'm looking at streamlining processes across a global organization, or even one with different groups of individuals within the same 4 walls, I have to think about the cultural impact and how that may impact the way different groups work well with others. We've seen this a lot in technology, and particularly with CRM, particularly as we bring younger workers into the organization that may be a lot more comfortable with the technology, much more used to using things like social networking, much more open to adopting technology, much more used to availing themselves of apps on their phone to do business and to do work. And I think one customer put it the best to me. He said, cultural can be, yes, it can be thinking about the U.S. or India, but it can also be thinking about the gray matter as much as the gray matter. The gray hairs and the gray matter. So certainly an interesting thing to think about as we think about rolling out process changes and how culturally different groups of users may adopt them. Finally, individual. The great power of CRM is about leveraging that intelligence of the software to drive changes in speed and changes in direction. But ultimately, it means that individual users have to see what's in it for them. As we think about the technology, really, how do we ensure that users are going to be effective in adopting CRM? Will individual people share and adopt? The first rule of ROI in any situation is if the users won't use it, the return on investment is always negative. A lot of advancements have been made in usability, and a lot of the advantage of process-driven CRM is being able to make users' jobs easier, to automate those processes and tasks, to leverage the intelligence of the software so that they can do more management by exception. They can focus more on higher-level activities than on just keeping the ball rolling. Good technology is usable first and feature-rich second. Great technology is both. We used to talk about what's in it for me. As we think about CRM and ultimately addressing those human factors to adoption within the organization, we really need to think about is WIF2. What's in it for the end user? Exposing those processes to make individuals more empowered and more informed to do their jobs, addressing those human factors, those individual factors, the gray matter versus gray hair connections, and ultimately thinking about how I take advantage of process-driven CRM to accelerate velocity, to improve both the speed and direction of my customer engagement, makes increased user adoption and user satisfaction. So as we think about the broader picture of CRM moving forward, it's important to realize where we've come from and how much opportunities still exist to drive more value in our organization. CRM today is about management. It's about the velocity of customer engagement and customer information, not simply about storing data. We see companies effectively adopting process-driven CRM, being able to do the work of 5 with 1, which is a pretty important ratio for growth moving forward. Velocity is about both speed and direction. It's about both top line and bottom line. But throughout all of this, it's important to remember the human factors to adoption and thinking about not just implementing processes for velocity with the organization, but in impacting specific individuals and enabling them to be more engaged and productive. There are a number of resources available to you for free download from the Nucleus Research website, including our standard CRM return on investment business case tool, the CRM value matrix, which rates all of the vendors in terms of the key factors we consider in thinking about ROI, usability, and functionality, as well as the latest CRM research, case studies more on the velocity of CRM and other data that may be useful to you as you continue to explore and evaluate opportunities in process-driven CRM. And with that, I know we have a ton of questions, but Mike, I will hand it back to you.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. Certainly interesting points. I know you've seen over the past decade a lot of changes, advancement, evolution of the CRM tools, and really the go-to-market, sales processes. I love the fact that you were touching on all the physics terms. It harkens me back to my high school physics, and you mentioned speed, velocity, and then touched on acceleration. The other one that comes to mind is really momentum. So as you're building out this pipeline and ever increasing the number of leads and the conversion rates and the acceleration, thinking about in today's, certainly in the technology world, recurring revenue, building the momentum of that revenue stream as well. So we do have a bunch of questions. Actually, the first one here is interesting. How often should companies analyze and optimize their processes? What do you think about that?
Oh, that's a good one. We've done a lot of work looking at decision-making processes within organizations, and the unfair answer, but the one I'm going to give, Mike, is it depends. Organizations have very different paces of decision-making and change, and I would say it's not specific by industry. I may have a very conservative, traditional organization that it may make sense to be on more of a 12 to 18-month basis. Others are turning every quarter or two. If we think about marketing and messaging cycles, 24 months is a good kind of overall rule of thumb to look at. Obviously, sales, I'm looking at quarter to quarter. The great thing with CRM today is we see the cadence and upgrades and the ability to adopt upgrades and to make changes within the system is something that can be done in weeks and not months or years, which used to be true. So I think not necessarily the self-driving car that goes from San Francisco to Boston, but certainly one that's taking input along the way and having a healthy look tactically on a quarterly basis and strategically, operationally on a 6-month or yearly basis isn't unreasonable.
Yeah, I would agree. We see here at BPM Online different processes requiring or benefiting from faster or slower frequency changes. So if there's a corporate policy, kind of the foundation of how business gets done, maybe that's something that's set in stone for a period of time. But what we've been working towards is to give the marketplace the tools to be agile and to be able to make changes to processes really quickly without affecting the ongoing business. So historically with tools you had to stop, redesign the process, and rolling it out was actually a process in and of itself. With today's tools, and we're going to show a little bit of it today as well, you can literally make changes in runtime or in real time and roll those out to those processes as quickly as needed. But I think, in this case, depends is an appropriate word because it depends on the industry, the company culture, and actually the particular process that you're focusing on, right?
Sure.
So another question, so in optimizing all these different processes, who should be in charge of the business process optimization and changes? Do you feel or have you seen benefits of having, a chief process officer, or is it best to be left to the particular functional areas?
I think the C-suite is crowded enough with additional made-up C titles that people have made already. It really comes down to those business managers, whether it's leaders in sales, leaders in marketing, or leaders in service. They should be owning those processes, and they should be responsible, too, for communicating them across the organization.
Okay. And so I know Nucleus is very focused on ROI. That's really the secret sauce, so to speak. And in your experience with a CRM, so probably not a new, from scratch implementation, but how quickly would you see an optimization of a process or the automation of a process affect the ROI of a solution?
Well, it really comes back to breadth of repeatability, Mike, and we certainly see today getting an initial payback from a new project or a new initiative in CRM. It's not unreasonable to see a payback within 6 months. We tell customers, if you're thinking about your business case, if you're looking at a 12 or 18-month payback, you may want to rethink your project. You may want to think about phasing it or some way, breaking it up into more manageable chunks, because recognize that the longer the payback, the greater the risk. The less flexibility you have because you've invested that money, and with vendors making upgrades, just the simple pace of technology evolution when we think about CRM today, you could miss a lot in 18 months. So better to have a more phased approach, focus on a specific process or a specific area where you can achieve a rapid payback and then use that payback to fund expansion and other efforts.
Right. So kind of mirroring the agile development process or methodology, having kind of short sprints to not guaranteed, but potential ROI so that the process isn't waiting for, or the implementation isn't waiting for a long period of time for the golden, kettle at the end of the rainbow, right?
Absolutely. And the great news today is that we're not looking at the sort of 12, 18, 24, 36-month development cycles that we used to see in CRM. Today, it's not unreasonable to be able to implement, portions of a project within a couple of months, pilot them, evaluate them, and use that knowledge to go back and deliver more returns for the rest of the organization.
Right. And another question, which I believe you touched on, when using the analogy of the driverless car, and maybe we're not there yet, but smaller steps. But the question is, how do you see BPM evolving in the nearest future? So what do you think the next? So assuming you're already automating processes, what is the direction of BPM and the automation in your mind or in your experience?
I think we'll see more and more, and I think we're already seeing it today, but more of this evolution toward leveraging the intelligence of the software to not just accelerate processes, but drive them, having self-learning triggers that enable me to have processes that self-adjust or that propose themselves for adjustment to managers, really taking advantage of what we can do with machine learning and embedded analytics to use those triggers both within and outside the system to drive changes in processes that adapt themselves over time.
Right. We're definitely seeing that. I think actually technology in some ways is ahead of the corporate world in that you think of the Internet of Things, machine data capture. We can absolutely trigger processes based on those types of things, and it's a matter of time of digesting those capabilities. And you talk about allowing one person to do the work of five. So certainly if you can, if day one when you turn it on, you need 4 less people to do the same amount of work, the ROI is going to come pretty quickly. And making the system or allowing the system really to leverage all the intelligence that's already there is just going to increase that.
Right.
So with that, I think we're going to jump back into the presentation. Great Q&A. Thank you everybody for the questions. We got a bunch of questions. So bringing it back to the presentation. Again, that was our expert perspective, and now I'm going to kind of bring it home a little bit more to live systems and solutions and talk about process-driven CRM as it exists really within bpm'online. And so as many of you may know, bpm'online offers a process-driven platform. You might guess from our name, business process management is the core of our platform across marketing, sales, and service. So the entire customer journey, all customer-facing processes can be leveraged or can leverage the business process engine that underlies the platform. So again, the solution comes with a business process engine built in. It's not an add-on, it's not a plug-in, it's not an additional cost. It actually drives the entire system. So bottom line, you could buy our system for a straightforward static CRM, but you're going to get a BPM engine regardless. And that engine allows you to design processes, execute them, and then monitor them, and frankly, constantly upgrade them and improve them and continue to roll out enhancements. Along with the engine itself, we don't deliver a blank slate. We actually deliver it with a library of best practice out-of-the-box solutions or processes for marketing, sales, and service. Matter of fact, the library includes some very specific sub-processes as well with respect to maybe pricing approval and whatnot. So it's a pretty thorough library that a lot of our clients will use out of the box for a period of time and then maybe modify as they find improvements, or they can build them from scratch, unique to their system. We're actually going to talk a little bit at the end about leveraging the engine and the platform even further for non-CRM, traditional CRM processes. So what you see here is just a very basic, actually I'd call this a sub-process, relates to a contract signing. And so with the system, in the background, you have that process design, visual process design map. What the user is going to see, as you see going through the first step, is presented to them in the single dashboard what the next step is required of them. And as the process walks through the different steps, the end user is just going to be presented with the information they need and the ability to execute those tasks all from one single interface. So the fact that there's a business process, and it could be very complex, in this case not very complex, but could be extremely complex, integrating subsystems and taking in machine information, the end user is just driven along the path for best execution. And so you see as it just walks through the process in the background, the appropriate tasks are presented to that end user. And what you're seeing here is actually our latest version, 7.8, which we're going to demo here in a second. This is what we refer to as the action dashboard. Basically, the effort has been made to put all relevant information and tasks accessible through a single screen. So the individual, whether they're marketing, sales, or service, never should have to leave this particular interface to be able to execute on all their tasks. And so with that, we're actually joined by Alex Petronenko, who's one of our senior sales engineers. He's going to give us a live demo to show you how this truly works. Alex?
Thank you, Michael. I'm very excited to be here today and to show bpm'online in action. And actually what you can see on your screen right now is the interface of our version 7.8, where we're standing specifically on a similar slide that Michael has shared with us, with an opportunity page being presented to us. So this is what the users will be working with on a daily basis when working in sales with bpm'online, right? You can see that bpm'online itself is engaging the user with the quick access to the most relevant, most important, critical information that they should have the access to when they start working. This is where on the left top corner, they actually have the quick access to the vital information on what is their previous mood about this opportunity, what is the probability that they have estimated so far, and how many days in funnel this opportunity has been, basically. Of course, in addition to that, we'll have the quick access to the BAT information, so the budget, the authority, decision-making, the need, and the timelines, and of course, the customer information, so that we also have the quick access to data on who are we working with this specific sale. In addition to that, of course, the actions dashboard will help our user to easily guide him to the next step in the opportunity, where we'll present those tasks that are still not completed as part of the sales process. This is where we will give him an easy and intuitive tool to schedule his ad hoc activities, in addition to those that are going to be created by the business process for him. And of course, this is where he can as well communicate internally with other users of the application through our enterprise social network, leave call notes easily, and of course, communicate with the customer through an email, all without leaving the page of the opportunity. So we believe in bpm'online that the key to user adoption and key to user success is to provide them the easiest tools to work in the application that they could ever imagine to have. And we believe that we did a good job here by providing the new interface of the opportunity with the actions dashboard that is actually available in multiple areas of the application, engaging multiple departments like marketing, working with leads, sales, working with opportunities, and service, working with cases in the same action-driven manner. And of course, the actions that are being created for the user are being created seamlessly by the business process management engine. And now I would like to actually switch to the process diagram to give you a better idea how exactly it works in bpm'online and how the users are being engaged through the process automation. So as you can see, bpm'online provides a very visual, easy-to-read diagram of the user actions within a certain step of the process. In our case, we're looking at the presentation step, where the users are being engaged through certain user actions that we have available, because bpm'online is not only a business rule management tool, but also a workflow management tool. By combining these two very important areas of business process management notation into one single designing tool. So in order to customize and add more actions to the diagram of the business process, the only thing that the user would need to do is to drag and drop an element to the diagram, where the system will automatically open the setup page, where the system administrator or the business analyst that completes the design of the process, since this is not a developer level functionality, would need to answer three very simple questions of the application. What should be performed, when it should be performed, and who should be performing this step. And of course, in addition to adding actions for the users, we can as well engage them by writing emails, answering system questions, and of course creating new records within the process diagram or applying changes to existing records. So the system will literally guide the user to the next best action through the process design, and it covers two very important types of users that work with any application. The new users who are not very familiar with the processes of the company and actions that they should be doing, those will be brought to those actions, and they will be given all of the information they need to know on what step they should be completing. And for those users who are very experienced, who've been with the company for some certain time and know how the processes work and know what actions are required, we will simply guide them to the next step so that the system gives them the quick access to actions that are required. And of course, with system actions that are being performed by the application completely in the background without any user interaction or distractions, we will help them to reduce and minimize the unnecessary data update and manipulation that takes so much time in our daily operations and work. And of course, with the help of multiple types of starting events and multiple types of intermediate events, and of course, multiple gateways, we will be able to create very complex and robust business processes that can cover literally any side of the operation of the business unit that is working in the application. And of course, since bpm'online does not restrict our customers and users on number of the processes that they can design, nor do we restrict a number of instances of processes that can be running at the same time, and because the process diagrams could be evoked by third-party applications, and because they can evoke third-party applications, our customers are literally unstoppable in what they can achieve through robust process design and process creation. And Michael, that will be all from my side, so passing over to you.
All right, great, Alex, thanks. It's always good to see live system experience rather than just PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint, as we say. So as you can see, bpm'online can offer a very dynamic, flexible, agile platform for you to leverage processes, automate processes into your environment. How long, if you need to make a change to a process, how long would it take to make that change? And hopefully, that was a really quick demo, but the reality is you can make a change to a live process in the background, test it, and then actually bring it into production live concurrent with the existing process. You can also designate whether that gets grandfathered in cases that have already started, whether they're sales opportunities or service cases or even marketing leads, whether they continue along the existing process path or jump across to the new path. So the answer is, really very quickly on the spot. I don't know that you would give every user access to make changes to processes, certainly not to the live ones, but hopefully, as illustrated by Alex, it doesn't really take a programmer to play with the tool and be productive. So let's continue on. So we really wanted to expand on from process-driven CRM into what we're seeing in more of our clients today, and that's leveraging process automation in what would be considered non-traditional, or non-CRM processes. And so this slide really designates what we've seen in some of our customers and prospects. We've had prospects come to us with business problems that are truly not CRM-based and look to leverage the platform. So you can see here across the top some different industries that we've worked in. So in financial services, we have a loan processing, underwriting process out there with some of our clients. Within insurance, we have claims management. And then within horizontal business functions, customer service, corporate services, and HR, we have people using it for all sorts of different things. Particularly, we're going to, at the end of this, talk about some customers and examples of different functions they're monitoring. Actually, there was another question that came out there, and I apologize if I didn't get this right. It's kind of a long question, but I think the person is trying to say that they've tried to embed a CRM appraisal process, if I'm reading this right, regarding their staff performance. And basically what they're coming up with is that their finance department always tends to reject their appraisals because it's not using their, finance true data. And so how can you get around that? And so my response might be that you can actually make a hybrid process where you're pulling data directly from that financial system and combining it with your appraisal process on the CRM. And so the results you get, the rating, the ranking, the scoring you get, might be more palatable to the finance department. In any case, again, what we're seeing is more and more of our customers and the marketplace looking to leverage the platform for non-traditional CRM processes. One example of that in our client base is Zyxel. Zyxel is one of the largest telecom companies in Europe. They were using our process for outward bound customer service, if you will, and had a business issue for internal IT management, IT service management within the company. And they realized that the bpm'online platform could be modified or configured to solve that problem. And so they're handling, hundreds of thousands of internal IT requests using what would be a CRM platform. So they manage change management, and if any of you are familiar with the bpm'online service platform, this looks quite a bit like the case queue. In this case, they're monitoring the changes in their own internal system, as well as release management of their products and configuration management. So nothing really to do with outside CRM processes. Another really interesting one and really unique is a client of ours, University of Southern Carolina. You might automatically assume that it has something to do with, Carolina, did I say Carolina? Not the Gamecocks, but South California. The Trojans, right, sorry. Any case, you might automatically think higher ed, and the reality is it's probably the furthest it could be from that. We're working with their Alzheimer's Therapeutic Research Institute, and they're leveraging the platform and particularly the portal capability to manage principal investigators. So people doing the research are using the portal to enter their research and data into the main system. They're also looking at leveraging our marketing capability to recruit possible candidates for their studies and research. So truly unique application of the system, but helping them to be as effective and efficient as possible. Third one here, I'm sure we all know Heinz. And if you think of Heinz and how many, probably thousands of products that they offer. And so they're using our platform for trade marketing. And so first time I saw this, I'm like, well, what exactly is trade marketing? What they're using it for is if you go into a grocery store and you see a kiosk set up with somebody allowing you to test products and then asking you to answer a set of questions, that is a component of trade marketing. So Heinz is using our system for that process across, as I said, thousands of products and, frankly, probably millions of grocery stores. And they're using it for the budget planning, the logistics, and then the trade analytics as that data comes in. So you see, what many of you know is our dashboard platform. They're using that to actually analyze that data that's being captured out there in kiosks with product testing. So really to wrap up kind of the bpm'online pitch, if you will, kind of the three main differentiators we see in our platform is, and should be clear by now, the platform gives our customers the agility to make changes, so not only to automate their processes, but to be able to change their processes as fast as their marketplace requires. Also allows you to align marketing, sales, and service on a single platform. So I like to say you can go from leads to loyalty. So it can be a prospect, become an opportunity, close a contract, and then service that customer all on a single platform, capturing that 360-degree view of the customer across the entire customer journey. And then the third one that we were trying to illustrate today is being able to incorporate non-CRM processes in that same BPM Online platform. So just to bring you up to speed with BPM Online, or if you're new to us, let you know a little bit about the company. At this point, so we've been in the global process-driven CRM industry for almost 15 years now. We have 6,500 global clients, 600 plus employees, and we leverage a large number, over 400 partners worldwide. And we leverage those partners both for global or territory geographic reach, but also implementation bandwidth, as well as industry expertise. And at this point, we have offices in Boston, London, Singapore, Canberra, Australia, and Kiev. So we've been expanding very quickly. We've been recognized by many of the key industry analysts. Certainly Nucleus is shown there. We've been on Nucleus's value matrix for several years, a couple years anyways, as well as Gartner, Forrester, and for the first time this year, Ovum has picked us up in their decision matrix. So those are good sources if you're looking for information about solutions, including BPM Online, of course. We've also picked up year over year multiple awards, and you see some of them here. Certainly, maybe most recently, CRM Watch List for 2016, and also multiple awards from CRM Magazine as a market leader. That really brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. We've been the beneficiaries of many questions here. Let me answer a couple of them here, or pose them, and Rebecca will get your input as well. So here's an interesting question. How should CRM vendors interact with companies so that they understand it's not just the technology, but the right processes that make a difference? So if I can paraphrase that, we're going to give you a platform that allows you to automate processes. It's not necessarily any good unless you put the right processes in there. So, Rebecca, what's your thoughts on how they can best, understand or improve their processes first, or in conjunction with rolling out the automation?
Well, I think to the point about how should vendors interact, the good news is that with the nature of change in CRM, vendors are looking to win your business, not when they close the deal today, but on an ongoing basis. And we've certainly seen a change with customer success management being an important point, not just from a marketing perspective, but in leveraging best practices. And there are a lot of great communities of user best practices that vendors have made great investments in to help you, learn what are best practices. As Mike said, take advantage of some of the pre-built ones that are in BPM and other solutions, but also be able to learn from your peers in what's been successful and not successful. And of course, it's important always to remember that doesn't necessarily have to mean in your industry. In fact, we're seeing sharing of best practices across industries becoming a much more common way to gain ideas that can be transformational for the business.
Yeah, definitely. So as I said earlier in the presentation, we've made an effort and make a continued effort to offer a library of kind of best practices. But we're certainly not the end all and be all for that. Rebecca, I think, I'm not sure if you tooted your own horn, and I'm not sure if you're in that business, but using a consultant from the outside to come in and take a third-party look at the processes within your company can certainly add value, and or just looking at the research that's out there defining best practices.
Absolutely.
Right? All right. So, this is somewhat self-indulgent, but there is a question, and I will tell you, it came from the outside. Why should I choose BPM Online over Salesforce.com? So, that's a softball for me. I got to kind of take that one. So the reality is a lot of the things that we've been showing here today is what we would say are our biggest differentiators over Salesforce, and Salesforce obviously being, arguably the best known CRM platform out there. We would argue that our process capabilities and our BPM engine is far superior to what they offer. It was not an afterthought. It was the vision of the company to begin with. So we start at the core with business processes. We didn't go acquire a company or bolt on an engine. So I would say certainly if you're looking for process-driven CRM, us over Salesforce.com, I have to say that's one of our biggest differentiators. And the other is that we have a truly integrated platform. So marketing, sales, and service sit on a single database. It's not bolted together. It wasn't created through acquisition. And so I'll get off my soapbox, but I kind of had to answer that one. Also, don't be afraid to keep asking questions because I'm trying to pick out the ones that may not have been answered in the presentation itself. Another one that I see here that is of personal interest to me for some reason is the Internet of Things. How can you integrate the Internet of Things into a CRM process? One of the examples I like to use is in a machine manufacturing company building machines or products that have a maintenance cycle that require replaceable parts. More and more of those machines have sensors that can send out a message to say, hey, it's gone through this many work hours or this part is showing wear. And that can actually get triggered directly into the sales process and open an opportunity that gets presented to intelligently the right rep. Maybe that rep is assigned to that particular company, and magically they call the customer to offer them, inventory, or we can even monitor their current inventory to offer them to re-up their supply. May actually be integrated so far as the supply just goes out. The order actually gets placed automatically based on what the sensors are telling them. The other one is healthcare wearables. So there's a lot of discussion, or actually the capability exists for people, for instance, with high blood pressure or heart rate monitors that can be captured through the Internet of Things. Can supply a process in BPM Online with a trigger to place a phone call, real time, etc. So kind of an interesting one to me. Rebecca, I'm not sure if you can see these questions, but certainly grab one of them if they make sense or spike your interest there. What are the core differences between dynamic processes and business processes in the traditional meaning? I know I've been involved recently with a couple webinars or podcasts comparing dynamic case management with traditional BPM. Rebecca, do you have experience, differentiating those two?
Well, I think what we see moving forward is a move toward much more dynamic, the ability to have more dynamic processes over time, and that certainly speaks to the velocity and leveraging the intelligence of the software. I think it's important to remember too, and having used a BPM Online myself, we are talking about changes and processes that can be made with 5 business users in, it's not real time, then relatively short time to be able to adjust processes as needed.
Okay, great. Here's more of a general or open question. What's the biggest challenge for digital transformation in the organization? So, there's many angles and avenues of the quote-unquote digital transformation. A lot of times I talk about the advent of omni, or the requirement for omni-channel, because there's so many more digital channels. What are you seeing, Rebecca, as some of the hurdles for embracing the digital transformation?
The biggest challenge for digital transformation is analog humans. We still have a lot of work to do, not just to implement processes and make change, but to have users adopt that. And humans by nature don't like change. So the more we think about, again, the WIF2, what's in it for the end user, and bringing the intelligence of the software to really bear to make individual users' jobs easier and more productive, the easier digital transformation is.
Right. Sometimes I think there's so many things you could do and such a volume of things. So you think about the Internet of Things. One of the problems with the Internet of Things is there's the increase in volume of data that needs to be acted on is really a challenge. And so there's so many different avenues. Maybe that leads to another question I think was actually asked here. What do you see, Rebecca, as the biggest bang for your buck, if you will, with respect to ROI and updating processes or updating digital functions?
Yeah, Mike, it really goes back to those core themes of breadth and repeatability that we talked about earlier, and really organizations looking at breadth and repeatability, whether it's in sales, service, or marketing, they're getting real ROI today. The other thing that we're seeing is really the ability to scale. So it's that 5-to-1 ratio that I was talking about. Believe it or not, we're seeing more and more in that in the marketing sphere to date, where I've had so many manual processes for so long. Organizations are just able to dramatically increase the footprint and the impact of their marketing efforts by using CRM to automate those processes. So another question here that I wanted to hit on as well, the average time frame for CRM ROI. Payback varies. Certainly, it's not unusual for us to see a payback period of 6 months or less with a CRM project. Depending on the size of the initiative and kind of the scale of the organization, probably 12 to 18 months is the outlier in terms of payback that I would recommend seeing, given the pace of change in the market. And again, if you're looking at a payback that is beyond 18 months, you really should probably be rethinking your deployment strategy to break it into more manageable chunks, so you can reduce the risk and increase your flexibility.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. All right, so we're coming up on time, but I'd kind of like to end with a loaded question, if you will. I think we all have heard over the years about the success rate of technology implementations in general, but CRM systems as well. And one of the questions here is, what are the core symptoms that show a CRM project has failed and it's time to stop losing time and money and just start from scratch? Rebecca, do you have experience of key metrics, like if you hit this red line, you just drop it and start over?
That's an excellent question. The glib answer, if you're asking the question, that's probably where you are.
Good answer.
The real answer is you shouldn't get to that point today because of the nature of CRM, the ability to deploy in an agile way, the ability to make changes quickly, you should be working with a vendor that is a partner that is helping you be successful from the get-go. So interesting, what we find, Mike, is that if we look at deployment data, customers' propensity to switch CRM systems is at about 2/3 within the first 6 months of their deployment. It drops dramatically after that and then goes back up about 3 years down. That means that 2/3 of CRM customers, from the day they sign the contract to make the decision, within the first 6 months of deployment, 2/3 of them would be willing to consider another vendor. That's why we tell vendors, you need to be winning that customer, not just when you sign the contract, but 3 quarters out. The good news for customers is that because it is such a competitive business, if you don't feel like things are on the right track, you should be talking to your vendor, being that squeaky wheel, weeks and months into deployment, so you don't ever get to that point where you're calling it a failure.
Yeah, agreed. There's so many thoughts to this answer. Obviously, adoption rate is something to be monitored and to be, focused on from the start of any implementation. So getting, that end user buy-in so that they see the value of the system. I think one of your slides was talking about, the evolution of CRM systems going from, collecting and managing data and reporting to being able to take action and suggest, next best steps. So allowing, I'm a grown-up salesperson, I guess. Being a salesperson, in the past I've looked at, and a lot of salespeople do, you look at CRM as, that's a tool for my management to keep an eye on me. You need to flip that so that it's really a tool to allow, acceleration and better velocity of the sales process and to be helping the end user. And you need to present that in the beginning of the project and be monitoring that adoption process so you don't hit that the critical line, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so I think that's about time. Great Q&A session. I really appreciate everybody's involvement. Hopefully we found this valuable. And we will be continuing to have these best practice webinars on, a consistent basis, and certainly would look to bring Rebecca back in the future. And thanks again, Rebecca, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks, Mike.
All right, everybody have a great day. Bye-bye.